What I am seeing from big law firms is they are getting pushed by their clients because the thought process being is it's going to save time, it's going to save money, especially if you're paying $1,200 an hour. I'm seeing a combination of like big firms creating their own tools, and then just like overnight, AI tools are just coming out of thin air, and it's really cool.
The Abstract is brought to you by Spotdraft, an end-to-end contract lifecycle management system that helps high-performing legal teams become 10 times more efficient. If you spend hours every week drafting and reviewing contracts, worrying about being blindsided by renewals, or if you just want to streamline your contracting processes, Spotdraft is the right solution for you. From creating and managing templates and workflows, to tracking approvals, e-signing, and reporting via an AI-powered repository, Spotdraft helps you in every stage of your contracting. And because it should work where you work, it integrates with all the tools your business already uses. Spotdraft is the key that unlocks the potential of your legal team. Make your contracting easier today at spotdraft.com. How can you leverage a social media brand to build a business? How is the practice of law going to evolve in an age of AI? Is the billable hour going away? Today we have Matt Margolis, partner at Margolis PLLC and an advisor to Attorney Share and Justice HQ, joining us on the Abstract. Before founding his own law firm, Matt led legal and community for LawTrades, and he also had prior experience as an attorney in private practice and for the state of Florida. I'm sure you've also come across his profiles, seen his tweets on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, or X. Matt, thanks so much for joining us today, live from Clock in Las Vegas.
I like that we have like a studio audience today.
Yeah, your dad's here. That's so cool.
Hey Dad. It almost started as like a bit. I was like, oh, I should bring my dad to Clock. But then I brought my dad to Clock.
I love it. I mean, I guarantee you that if she had the option, and if he had the option, my mom and dad would love to sit here and watch us do a podcast.
Listen, it's great. Like I remember, not to go too far into it, but like I remember my dad taking me to like his conferences from his work, whether it's real estate or insurance. Like I'm a little kid, I'm like running around, I'm getting pens, stuff. I'm like pretending like I know what the vendors are doing. Like, yeah, appraiser. I know what an appraiser does. And now like the roles have really reversed where like my dad's with me at this conference. He sees all the vendors and it's like, it's weird, man.
You came home with a lot of like cool plushy toys, that sort of thing.
Dude, pens. Do you know how many pens we would have? Just an ungodly amount of pens. It was awesome.
That's great. Speaking of bits, we do want to ask you some questions today about how you built a great personal brand on social, and we're going to talk also about how that's translated into business opportunities for you.
Sure.
Maybe to get us started, do you actually remember what your first TikTok was it a reel or was it a tweet? Like, how did this whole thing get started?
Man, it was like a LinkedIn post.
It was a LinkedIn post.
Isn't that weird? It's like, I feel like weird admitting that.
Yeah.
It was a LinkedIn post. I have to whisper it. So, if I remember correctly, as my own personal lore goes, I think I was like posting on LinkedIn and it was like, like the lawyer stuff, like very professional legal updates, the spiel, right? And I think, and maybe I saw Alex Sue post something, or I don't know what the inspiration was, but like I was so tired in my office because I think I had a client that just like refused to use contracts. Everything was like, it's a handshake. I'm like, that's frightening. That's scary, right? I look at the camera and I'm like grizzled and disheveled, whether by choice or otherwise. And I'm like sitting there and I go, please just have a contract, like almost crying as an attorney. Please have a contract. And like people liked it. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. So like humor, but also like a little bit of like self-deprecating kind of bits. And I did another one, I think on like whiffing it when it comes to filing something with the court. I think it was like motion for whatever, but it's motion spelled incorrectly, and you always catch it after, right?
Right.
People are like, I relate to that. That's I misspell everything. I get it. I was like, so that's where it started. So it started on LinkedIn. It progressed over to TikTok.
Yeah.
And then Instagram, and then Twitter X, Threads. It's like the this social media octopus where like a new leg forms, and then my videos and my content kind of like funnel out through that. But like humble origins are on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Did you have any idea at that point that you wanted to build a social media brand, or was like this was just experimentation?
Experimentation, yeah. I mean, like I guess there's like two sides to it, right? Like, yeah, the content itself was fun. I was like, this is cool. People enjoy it. It's not like I was like my goal was like let's market to lawyers, like the most niche thing. I think the goal originally was like, the classically brand building, get exposure. I didn't get a lot of client contact in private practice when I just started, which I get it. I'm sometimes a little annoying. But I thought it had like a dual purpose, right? Like, yeah, I can post and maybe it'll attract some clients. But also like, this is fun. This is like it's like a good, everything's a bit. It's good to share in the bit with everybody.
Maybe we should ask your dad. Like, are you comedic? Did you have any like background in comedy? Did you think you were like funny growing up?
Dad, was I funny growing up? He's nodding no. All right, that was really helpful. I'd like to think so. I mean, I like the humor, right? Like, I make this joke in the internet all the time that like litigation's nothing more than like very aggressive community theater with consequences.
That's good,
right? And it's true, right? Like lawyers inherently are very theatrical.
Sure.
And like I'll admit it, man. I'm a sucker for the dramatics. So like I think I'm funny.
Yeah.
I hope I'm funny, but I'm also like dramatic.
I think you're funny, and I mean the other thing is it's amazing to see how there's all these other sort of social media meme accounts, and they pick up like your tweets. They'll show up in I'll be looking at, I don't know, like Liquidity or something, a funny, right, like finance account, and there'll be like Matt Margolis tweets in it. So clearly lots of people across across the sort of social media universe. I guess what I'm saying is it resonates beyond just the like narrow or slightly narrow legal space.
That part is always weird. Like, I'll have lawyers flip stuff over, right? Especially tweets. Tweets are the easiest thing to send out to somebody because I can share them on Instagram, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and they'll just disseminate. But it's always weird when it's someone that's out of legal. Like, I'll get it sent over and it'll be like accounting is common because I feel like it's like very similar. But like it'll be someone in like, it'll be like a dentist, and they're like, I get it, man. And I'm like, yeah. Cool.
Maybe I can get a free tooth cleaning out of it.
Fingers crossed, man. Dental work's expensive, man.
Yeah.
But that part is always so weird to me that like the content resonates and with people outside of legal, or I'll get people to say this. They'll say like, I don't understand like the real legal side of the joke, but like, I feel like I relate to this. I feel like you're talking about being anguished, in anguish because someone won't take no, or someone, or you've got this thing that's blocking your way and you're just so frustrated by it. And that's something I find interesting is like, it'll be a very legal joke or bit or whatever it is. And someone's like, I understand enough of the context where I find this funny.
There's an emotional resonance. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the show The Office, and it's almost like, like the content that you put out or Alex puts out, or that's funny and poking fun at sort of the mundane aspects or the frustrating aspects of work. It's almost like just like a continuation of what started, I guess, with The Office or Office Space or
it is.
Something like that.
That frustration in like white collar jobs.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because like everyone makes the joke, like we're keyboard warriors. Like we're behind a computer, like typing away. And it's funny like that we have these just like, all the frustrations are very universsul. And it all stems from us like sitting in an office. Sometimes it's this kind of like fakey corporate formalities or the way we address each other or the way we have to act when things are bad. And it's just, it's so funny to me that like we're all in it and we're like, yeah, man, I hate this too. I love it.
Is there I'm really curious about this, is there a tough side to this content production, right? Like, you have to put out a lot of content. I mean, a reel a week or a couple reels a week or tweets every couple of days. Like, do you feel a lot of pressure to generate content, or has it just become very natural to you? Yeah, I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like such a lawyer. It depends. So, oh my gosh, it's like a bit within a bit. So, when it comes to like written content, I feel like a lot of it is stream of conscience. So like for me, it's easy. It's like using Twitter or X or Threads or LinkedIn. I can just knock out a thought, hopefully it's a good thought, right?
Yeah.
People think it's funny. Sometimes when people are like, hey, you good? I'm like, let me delete that one. Maybe that one's not good. But like, it's easy. That's easy. When it comes to like videos, it's a production, right? It becomes like a whole thing, and there is this side of content creation. I don't want to say it's hard, right? Like I don't want people to think that I'm like, oh my gosh, being a content creator is this like huge job that's worse than anything else. Yeah. Right? But like making these videos take time, right? And if you want it to be good, you really have to think about the concept, understand that like this is relatable. People will enjoy this. Sometimes you can like, I'll do videos where like I'm in bed and I'll make a bit, and I'm like, this went way too far for. but like for other ones that like really I put a lot of time into, it takes a while. It takes its toll.
Yeah.
So I haven't been able to keep up the frequency that I used to when I was in house or life obviously I have a kid, I've got my wife, I've got my firm, but like before I could definitely do much more of it, but now like maybe like a reel a week or like a reel every so on, and then because that's a little bit harder and more time intensive and a lot of labor, but like those tweets, man, I'm like frantically on my phone right.
It's whatever pops into your head when you wake up in the morning and you're making your coffee.
I hope people find this one funny.
Yeah. Well, I do think there might be something a little bit freeing about the fact that you do post pretty frequently on Twitter, right? Which is not everything has to be like a huge winner, right? Yeah. I mean, I don't have nearly the following you do, but as I post more and more and more on LinkedIn, it's almost like being a salesperson in a sense of being comfortable with like rejection here and there. If one post really resonates with people a week and two of them don't resonate quite as much, like I'm still comfortable with that because I still feel like, okay, we went and we gave people something that hopefully changed how they thought about, their jobs or careers, or we gave something back, right? And they didn't love the other stuff that we put out. That's okay, right? Like we had a win.
You post for the love of the game, man.
Yeah.
You post for the love of the game. And that's the thing too, right? Like I think a lot of people get hung up on this. That you have people that post, and I think there are a lot of times that like social media marketing and branding and business development, you do post with intention. There are things that you do with intention. But a lot of the time too, like it's okay to make a stupid joke. Obviously you don't want to be, you don't want to alienate your audience, and you don't want to be too offensive.
Sure.
And you don't want to create a situation for yourself where you're like, that was a mistake. I don't want to, but like I took an Uber with my dad, and the guy had a strobe light going, like in the Uber. And I'm like, that was an impeccable commitment to the bit. Thank you so much for the Las Vegas strobe light, which like, this was a lot of fun. That was actually like a lot of fun. And like, it's like, I'm posting that, like, I don't think that's going to go anywhere. Do I think that's going to go viral? No. Do I think that's going to elevate my branding? No, I posted it because there was an Uber driver that had a strobe light in Uber.
You just thought it was fun.
That's it, man. Yeah. So like, I think that's something that people get hung up on quite too much,
When you got hired by LawTrades, I think you helped sort of pave a path that now more people are following, of leveraging your personal brand to help them with brand awareness. It's almost like a demand generation engine for the business, right? I'm curious, you've got a lot of sort of views on the law and how the law is evolving. Do you think that their model of fractional legal support is really the future? Like, how do you, tell us a little bit about, why did you join LawTrades amongst, I'm sure, a bunch of other folks who were courting you at the time?
That was so much fun back then. Good times. You ever feel wanted? No.
Yeah.
It was great. So I love that model. I love the model. And I market myself right now as a fractional general counsel, right?
Yeah.
For businesses. It makes sense. Like this decentralized nature of law where, yes, like you always need law firms, right? But these freelance attorneys do incredible. Like, I mean, the attorneys on these platforms, not just LawTrades, but all these are stellar.
Yes.
Unbelievable attorneys from a variety of different backgrounds that can do work, have great margins because a law firm's not taking it. Their malpractice insurance maybe is covered by the platform, or malpractice insurance ultimately isn't that expensive, especially for a solo. And in this day and age, you don't really need anything. Virtual office, maybe your client is providing, if it's an in-house support role, maybe your client is providing the software. It's great, and these people are making great money, and it's just on the other side of the equation, whether it be a law firm or a client or a company, whatever, an individual, they're getting the same level of support as, like, I don't want to say the firm names. I'm not going to alienate any big law firm's name, but Dirkland Dellis. Okay, they're a great firm. They're a great firm. But you're getting the level of support that you would be accustomed to, and you're like, this is incredible. I utilize fractional support in my firm.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love it.
Let's talk a little bit about your firm. When you transitioned out of LawTrades to start it, I'm curious if that was a scary transition. I think a lot of people look at you and you're like, oh, well, he already has this big personal brand. It must have been like so easy to do BD. And I'm sure that actually wasn't the case, right? Like,
oh my gosh. It was such a misconception, right? People were like, oh my gosh, like you have this, you're right, this automatic funnel.
Right.
And no, man, I'll say this, like, I'm the funny guy on the internet. Sometimes clients or potential clients maybe don't want the funny lawyer. Maybe they want the serious lawyer. The bulldog lawyer, right?
Yeah.
Which I'm more of a chihuahua, I think, at best.
That's good.
I got to throw a couple of those in there. Keep me humble. So, but it certainly was, especially, and I started the practice in like November around Thanksgiving. So it was certainly hard. It was hard. It was not easy. It's great for intake. But again, like your social media presence and your brand and your image are what you attract, right? Like for me, I do attract corporate work, and that's great. But my deal cycle and my type of client, it's not gonna be like 1,000 people see my video and 100 people call. It's gonna be like 1 out of 10,000 people see a video and call.
Right.
So it took a second to ramp up, and like I'm very thankful that I market to attorneys, and attorneys are like, you're funny. I have a client that I can't do work for. Like, it seems like that's and that was helpful. Super helpful. So over time, it has definitely built up, and now I'm a little overwhelmed in a good way, right?
That's good.
But yeah, it was definitely a work up. It wasn't like turn on the lights and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, like here's $1 trillion in business. Definitely not.
Were there any people, as you were making that decision or starting to launch the firm, trying to do BD, that you felt like really went out of their way to help you or really supported you? Like, what was that experience like of maybe relying a little bit more on the community to help you get going?
It was so helpful. So I preach this often, right? Like the community will help you. As long as you give to the community will give back. And like, it almost seems like a platitude at this point, right? Everyone says it, but it was the case. So like, there's a firm, it's called the Franchise Firm down in Boca Raton, Florida. And the founding partner had left his firm to start this firm. And he had called me up and he was like, do you do this? Do you do this? And do you do this? Just, he goes, I got you, no worries.
Yeah.
And just started referring over work. And we ended up working together. We still work together in a lot of capacities. And he didn't do that because, like there's some sort of like big, he literally just did that to help. And ultimately he's, we both work very well together. The firm, I love the firm.
Sure.
But he did that because he's like, you help me, I help you.
Yeah.
And I know you're good. And I know my clients will appreciate you. And it's been stellar. It's the most helpful thing. And then there's Bob Simon. I'll give a shout out to Bob. Bob is the craziest, most fun person like ever. But Bob at the Simon Law Group is like one of the most helpful people, and he mentored me and he helped me get in, which we'll talk about maybe later, for Justice HQ and Attorney Share. But attorneys just reach out and they're like, hey, like you made me laugh in those times that I hated my job. What do you do? Like, what's your practice look like? I wonder if there's any sort of, he's saying this corporate phrase, synergy with us, right? But I mean, people reached out. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy.
You think you have a really interesting, you have interesting experience, and then I think you have a really interesting sort of vantage or viewpoint on how the legal profession is changing. And I'll ask you in a second about, we're here at Clock, about legal ops, about some of the tech, AI. But you've also been an in-house attorney as well. I think that more and more in-house folks are being seen as operators, right? Folks who drive business outcomes. They're not just like sitting in the corner and providing some esoteric advice.
The Department of No.
Yeah, right. How have you seen the sort of importance of having really great in-house help evolve over time? How have you seen in-house roles evolve? What did you try to accomplish when you were helping LawTrades running legal for them?
Yeah. So I guess high level, I am seeing the same thing. I am seeing in-house lawyers not just be in-house lawyers, take on multiple hats. Like classically, you'd see maybe like GC or CLO and maybe chief compliance officer or a regulatory role. But I'm seeing like chief business development officer. I'm seeing, I was community. I've seen a combination of that. I'm seeing marketing. I'm seeing, which is weird. It's like you're yelling at yourself in the mirror. Like, don't post that. I'm watching you. Can spam. So like, it's like buzzwords.
Cookie consents.
Use or due privacy. But like things like that, like you're seeing legal roles stretch out a little bit. I'm seeing more lawyers sit on boards. I'm seeing more lawyers get chosen as founders, as co-founders, because that's incredibly helpful, especially with AI, where there's all these legal hurdles. I'm definitely seeing lawyers be relied upon much more as like, okay, you get the law, but like I think you understand how the law can work in this direction, so we can reach this outcome, and it's great. So I am seeing that for myself. Like a lot of my roles were hybrid roles. Like when I was in private equity, and I was both the director. What was my role? That's a good question. I was the director of legal and director of risk management, and in that role, I was controlling the insurance portfolio. I was assisting with external internal risk. I was doing seminars and whatnot for individuals. And for me, I was like, oh, this is so novel. And then I met a bunch of lawyers and like, that's not novel. Like that's actually very common now that people are taking those kinds of roles. So I see a big trend in that direction of lawyers becoming much more of like, maybe stretch a little too thin, but like the jack of all trades.
Right, like a true sort of generalist counsel.
Absolutely.
We're here at Clock, and so of course the focus is on legal ops, but everyone's talking about AI and tech and how AI is going to change how legal departments run. I'm also curious about if you're leveraging AI at your law firm, if you're starting to see it affect the way that you practice. And maybe like a secondary question there is, how are other big law firms gonna respond?
So I am, and I have disclosures. No one yell at me. But I do use it from time to time. It's not like I'm like using things that, that's always the biggest concern is privacy and IP. Like, am I losing whatever I'm putting in there?
Confidentiality.
That's the biggest thing. Like, am I breaching a privacy issue? So I am using it respectfully, not using client information, much more in a general sense. So like legal research, and there's a number of tools out there that I use for that. And I use it, presently I use it as a surface level thing, right? Like, is it getting me in the right direction? And then it'll put me in a direction, and then I'll use traditional tools to get there. I think over time, as AI really progresses, it may be a much fuller tool as opposed to like, all right, this is the question, let's see what other questions pop up, or where does this lead me to? So I'm definitely using it on a legal research perspective. I don't have a CLM product. I'm not a legal department. I'd love to use one. That would be awesome.
We can hook you up.
You don't say. Thanks, man. But like I am using it like that, at least for the law firm. What I am seeing from big law firms is they are getting pushed by their clients, right? Because the thought process being is it's going to save time, it's going to save money, especially if you're paying $1,200 an hour. Like, I'll keep the rate, but let's slim down the time a little bit. And what I am seeing is these firms are creating their own proprietary tools, which is really cool. Or they're leveraging tools that are in existence, and now we have all these new vendors that are like, yeah, I could do that. I'll do it for you. I'll service that. So I'm seeing a combination of like big firms creating their own tools, and then just like overnight, AI tools are just coming out of thin air, and it's really cool. Like I met at Clock today. I met one that was creating lawsuits. Like it's using an AI tool to create the complaint and get that out, or it'll do the answer,
Right.
it'll do discovery. I've met AI tools that are more workflow related, and they'll help your workflow and make sure that things are actually being allocated properly and sent to the right people. It's the coolest thing, man. So I
Yeah.
see much more of that.
This is a little bit of a joke, but I mean, it's accelerated by AI. Is the billable hour going away?
No, man. I try to operate outside of it. I still use it for certain things, but like I have been doing much more of a flat fee.
Sure.
I like flat fee subscription sometimes. It's a little bit more predictable for people. It's not always the best because sometimes things take longer than the flat fee.
Yeah.
But do I think it's going to go away? No. Do I think we're going to get really creative and a lot of firms move away from it and a lot of clients much more inclined to use those firms? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I tend to think that's right. I mean, that more and more custom agreements or arrangements between firms and clients are going to become commonplace, right?
Hybrids, flat fee, and then maybe it goes hourly, but a reduced hourly at a certain point.
Right.
Yeah, or things of that nature.
You also do a little bit of advisory work on the side, which we've talked, which you referenced earlier, Attorney Share and Justice HQ.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about those companies and how you got into being able to do advisory work for them?
I'm not going to shout out Bob Simon anymore because I'm not doing it, Bob. But Bob is one of the founders. Matt Thielen's another person that we know who's fantastic.
Former general counsel himself. Some cool companies in LA. Yeah.
We always get to share war stories, which is super fun. So what they are, they're two sides of one coin, which is the main company, but the Justice HQ is a community of plaintiffs' attorneys, which brings support to these attorneys, whether it be events or mentorship or vendor relationships and partnerships.
Sure.
I love that. I love that because I don't think it's necessarily common with plaintiffs' attorneys. Plaintiffs' attorneys are very friendly and collegiate with each other by nature. But to find an organization like this where the goal is literally like, let's all sit down and let's talk about the best way to tackle this issue or the best way to handle this. I really enjoy it. So that's what they are. And then Attorney Share is a litigation, why I say litigation, let me back up a second. It's more of like an attorney to attorney marketplace. And it's just a platform where, more like a messaging platform where two attorneys can connect and be like, I have XYZ matter.
Sure.
And the other attorney is like, okay, I can do it. This is the fee split. And they go do their thing and they go off and prosper. Because the issue that I've run into myself is attorneys will get referrals and they're like, I don't have to do with this. I was like, text?
Right.
Can you take this one? And someone's like, no. And you're like, all right, well, what
Instead
do I do?
of it being like everyone texting each other or WhatsApping each other, there's a text solution.
But honestly, it's kind of what it is. And it's great because for the client, they're not getting bounced around a bunch of places and they can find their like attorney that can actually do their matter. And it saves everyone time and energy. And just so the matter can be done. The matter can start and that person can be happy and get the resolution that they're looking for.
That's great. I've got just a few more questions for you.
They better be jokes.
Yeah. Well, back to social media.
Yeah.
I know you're friends with other folks who are content creators. Are there others on social that you think, if they like what you're creating, if they find you funny, other people that they should follow?
I thought you were going to say enemies, which would have been such a funnier question. Do you have any other enemies in the market? I'd be like, all right, listen, let me get the list ready. So other content creators to follow?
Yeah.
Oh, there's so many, man. Why would you do this to me? So I like, obviously Alex too, we all follow, we all love.
Sure.
So I love Alex. There's Brittany Leonard, which I'm doing an event with her coming up this week.
Former podcast guest.
Yeah.
That's a great episode.
That is. CC, which is, she's stellar. So, former Big Law, writing a book on the subject, highly recommend. Julian Sarafian, who's another former Big Law.
Oh, okay, that's new for me.
He's great. Oh my gosh, everyone's going to yell at me for this list. There's so many. Paige Sparks, who's an employment attorney. I'll do a rapid fire. How about that?
Sure.
Attorney Ryan. Ryan is another employment attorney. There's Ashley Hurd, who's manager method, great HR. Gosh. Scott Oliver, who's an SBA attorney. Because that's the thing about the law. There's all these genres of law, and so you have genres of creator. You don't just have like funny creator, explaining creator, or whatever. You have like funny, but in the niche of SPA lending, or funny in the niche of employment, or serious in the M&A space, or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's so many of these people to follow. But I'll start with that. If you're not on that list, it's not that I don't love you. It's just I'm put on the spot.
Yeah, I put you
like,
on the spot.
I'm like shaking my head. I'm like, please don't yell at me for this.
We can add any that you think afterwards to the show notes.
Post-production, we'll throw it in.
Exactly. I like to ask this to a lot of my guests. I mean, you're super busy, so I don't know if you've had a lot of time to read, but are there any good books that you've read recently that you'd recommend to our audience?
This is such a shameless plug for you guys. You just gave me a book. It's like explain. I think it's like What Mommy Does.
Yes. Yeah.
And
we wrote a children's book about what legal ops and in-house lawyers do every day that, the attendees at Clock could take home and show to their kids, which we thought was cool.
I love it. So I'm an attorney. My wife is an attorney. My wife is a stellar attorney who's like, to my clients listening, I'm still a really good attorney. My wife is an unbelievable attorney, and much better attorney than I am. And I am excited to bring that book home and show it to my kid.
Oh, I love that.
And we'll read it.
That's great. I just have one last question for you, Matt. I think this is a good one, and you've had a really interesting career, so I'm curious what you think. If you could look back on your days of being a young lawyer just getting started, what's something that you know now that you wish you'd known back then?
When I was a young attorney? When I was in my prime? What is something I wish I knew? It works out. A lot of the time it works out. I think the community thing is also important, that like giving out to the community and it comes back. Especially I've seen that much more now, but it'll work out. Like the things that you think are so monumental and important, especially things of status.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter, and the things in your life that matter will work out. I think that's the thing. Don't worry about being the shareholder of, what did I say, Dirk Landellas?
Yeah.
If I get sued for this, I'm sorry. But like that is important, and that's great, and that's cool. But like, don't worry about that. Just worry about what you're doing presently. It'll all work out.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Matt.
Thanks, man.
Live from Las Vegas at Clock with our first ever studio audience.
My dad's watching. This is so funny. Shout out to my dad.
Yeah, this has been great. And to all of our listeners, thanks so much for tuning in, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd recommend that you give my interview from earlier in the season with Brittany Leonard, General Counsel at Civics, a listen. We talk about how to build your personal brand on LinkedIn. You can also subscribe so you can get notified as soon as we post a new episode. And if you liked this one, I'd really love to hear your thoughts. So leave a rating or a comment. If you'd like to reach out to me or Matt, our LinkedIn profiles are in the description. See you all next week.